to make my name, wanted my pool, my dose of fame, wanted my parking space at Warner's. But after a year, a one-room hell, a Murphy bed...
Well, Michael, welcome via the wonders of the virtual world. Now, I don't know about you, but it seems to me much longer than 3 months since our lives were put on hold in a kind of freeze frame. I don't know, were you in the middle of something or geared up for doing something when it kicked off?
I'm always in the middle of something. Firstly, I just want to say lovely to speak to you after all this time. I know we'd planned to talk a few years ago now. And,
I know.
Yeah,
you've been a busy boy. Yeah.
Well, we end up travelling and all these things, but it's nice to actually finally get to speak to you.
Yeah, great.
Properly, officially, anyway.
Officially.
Yes, I was. Well, I had a theatre project lined up that hadn't been announced, and of course, before it's announced, you're not allowed to say anything. So I'm still not allowed to say anything because they haven't officially announced it. So I would have been in the middle of a run of a production right now. Actually, we were due to start rehearsals in June, the beginning of June, I think. So. Actually, no, we would have still been in rehearsals then, probably. Yeah.
It's extraordinary how. We're all slowly adapting to a different rhythm, but I mean the knock-on effect of this thing has been horrendous, and particularly for our business.
Yeah.
Everything's crossed. Everything. I didn't realise, Michael, that you were a fellow Liverpudlian. That's all the best.
Are
people
you a Liverpudlian?
I am indeed.
You would never know, that's what people say to me as well.
Yeah, exactly. I was born in Bootle.
In Bootle?
You can't get more Liverpudlian than that.
And when did you move?
When I was very young. That's why, my dad was the Scouser and my mother was quite posh. So I picked up more of her, I think. And I moved when I was about 5.
Oh, right. You were younger than I was. I was about 12 when I moved to Cheshire, but of course, Cheshire is very kind of Manchester-based. Oh, there's a whole history of football involved as well. Of course, they were all Man United fans, and Liverpool had just been reigning as a team for years and years and years by the time I actually arrived in Cheshire. So they hated Scousers. So the accent, the trace of an accent that I did have very quickly vanished or morphed into something more Cheshire.
Yeah.
More neutral, I suppose you could say.
Yeah. Now, your list of credits is pretty dizzying, and I've kind of watched it grow from out front, as it were. But I guess we should start with the whole Sunset experience on both sides of the pond, Sunset Boulevard. I have to say I had your card marked for Joe Gillis even before the announcement came, and had it been on your radar for some time before you got offered it?
It's interesting you should say that. There's two parts to that question, I suppose. The first thing is I used to listen to Michael Ball singing Sunset Boulevard in my bedroom when I was about, I don't know, I must have been about 15, 16 years old.
It's a terrible admission.
I know. Sorry, Michael. And I used to sing along to it. It sounds like such a kind of... It sounds like a made-up thing that I'm saying for the sake of an interview, but it really is the truth. I used to sing along to Michael Ball, to singing the title song from Sunset Boulevard. I was living in a bungalow, and we had a loft conversion, so I lived in the room that was upstairs, and it was tiny, and we had a sloping roof, and obviously being 6'4" almost, it was a challenge. So I used to stand in the middle of the room, because that was the only place I could actually stand up tall, and sing Sunset Boulevard, blasting it out from my stereo. Imagining, that one day I might, get a chance to play a role like this.
Yeah.
And never, in my wildest dreams, believed I would actually play that role. And then I ended up playing the friend Artie Green.
Yes.
In the Cork. There was a Cork theatre version which was done for 2 nights because it was done for BBC Radio 2.
Yeah. Was that with Petula Clark?
It was. It was. So Petula was playing Norma, Michael Ball was playing Joe Gillis, and I was playing his friend Artie. And we did 2 performances, like I say, in Cork in Ireland, and it was a great experience. I mean, it was so quick. Martin Yates was conducting the orchestra, and it was great fun. I mean, Artie is such an easy role, really. You know, he kind of swans in, says a few lines, sings a little bit, and then that's it. He's hardly ever seen.
Had you seen the show at that point?
No, I'd never seen.
You didn't see it at the Adelphi. Ah,
no, I
you're
hadn't.
too young.
In fact, thank you. I'm definitely doing an interview with you again. Yeah, I'd never actually seen a production of it in the past.
Amazing.
And there was a twofold part to your question. You said,
yeah, no, was it on your radar? Quite simply,
thank you.
But,
You've triggered that.
Yeah.
Because when the auditions began, or I should say when they started reaching out to people, about the auditions happening, a lot of my friends contacted me and said, hey, they're doing Sunset Boulevard and Glenn Close is playing Norma Desmond. You should audition for Joe. So, of course, I rang my agent at the time and I was like, come on, get me in. And he said, okay, let me work on it. And he rang back and he said, I'm really sorry, they only want to see A-listers. Oh. And I was like, oh, what? But they've got Glenn Close. Why do they need an A-lister? That's ridiculous. You know, they're not going to sell enough seats anyway. You know, of course, it's sold out. So that was the end of the dream, as far as I knew it at that moment. So I was like, oh, okay, fine. I just forgot about it completely. And then probably about 2 or 3 weeks later, I had a phone call from my agent and he said, oh, they're interested in seeing you now for Joe. And I was like, of course I had a bit of a chip on my shoulder at that point. Oh, fine. Now they want to see me. Now they can't get their A-lister, So I was all a bit kind of haughty about it. But I put a lot of work in actually to learning it. I think the thing with Sunset Boulevard is it's actually a really difficult song. Yes, I had sung along to it and sung along incorrectly. So it had created a really bad muscle memory of singing completely the wrong notes.
I know what you're saying.
And also trying to sing in 5/8, which is, for me, quite challenging. I know brilliant musicians out there wouldn't have had a problem with it, but for me, counting in 5/8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, rather than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well,
I know.
So trying to sing in 5/8 was just like mind blowing. It took me ages to get it. And also, it's so wordy that it's a difficult song to breathe. There are very few opportunities to actually snatch a breath. And of course, Andrew Lloyd Webber wrote it like that purposefully. Yes. Because he was, Joe Gillis is on edge. He's uncomfortable in the situation he's in, and it's brilliant in that way. Musically, it matches the way he's feeling, and it's fantastic. It's great to play. So that's a very long-winded way of answering your first question.
I'd love to have known who their A-listers were.
I know. I think Hugh Jackman was busy that weekend.
Oh, is that it? Yeah. Well, that's the only one that might spring to mind. I actually think it's up there with ALW's best work. I mean, it's that yearning nostalgia, the colour of the score, right from the prelude. I think the overture is one of my favourite Andrew Lloyd Webber's overtures. You could transplant that into the soundtrack of the movie, and no one would question it.
Absolutely.
I was at the premiere at the Adelphi.
Wow.
When they closed.
You were 4.
I was 4. Thank you, Michael. You're so generous. And they closed the Strand. I've never seen anything like it to this day. I mean, they had Hollywood searchlights and goodness knows what. But more to the point, I was in LA when Glenn Close first bowed in 1994. And I was in the Northridge earthquake that happened 2 nights before Sunset Boulevard opened. The last big earthquake in LA, which was terrifying, absolutely terrifying. And I went to the show with a friend of a friend, and an announcement was made at the beginning from the stage manager saying, there are going to be aftershocks during this performance, because there were hundreds of aftershocks. I mean, people think an earthquake's an earthquake, but believe me, you're walking along the street and it's like the street is undulating. beneath you. It's extraordinary. Anyway,
Quite terrifying.
he said, if I rush onto the stage, he said, leave in an orderly manner.
Talk about panicking the audience at the beginning.
Yes, I know. It was
If there's another earthquake, don't panic, everybody.
a rather ungenerous friend of mine suggested it was Patti LuPone's Wrath kicking off in New York.
I'm not going to say anything about it.
No, but anyway, Patti's a friend, so
Right.
I love her to death. But that's another story. But it was
I
extraordinary.
just have to say, I think she's wonderful in Hollywood. The new TV series.
Yes.
Isn't she great in that?
Oh, I did a stage interview with her last year at the Haymarket Theatre Royal, and it was one of the happiest nights of my life. We've known each other for some time, but she was just on fire. And when she's on fire, oh my goodness, But anyway, it was an extraordinary night because that tension in the air, sitting in a theatre watching this piece and Glenn's performance. And of course, what's her massive advantage has always been the intensity of the acting. And I can only imagine, Michael, being up close to that as you were.
I mean, it was like a masterclass every night, just seeing the detail, the nuance, the involvement, the engagement in the character every night. It was just thrilling to play opposite because it meant I could let go and also push my performance level as well. I think it's I don't know, it's like playing sport, playing tennis against a really good player. You up your game to match, and Glenn brought that out in me, I think. And Lonnie Price, our director as well.
Oh yeah,
he's wonderful.
Was she generous and encouraging from the start?
She was. Surprisingly,
yes, you always wonder, don't you, with Hollywood stars?
Well, yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't it? You think, oh God, here we go. One of the greatest actresses of our generation. She's going to be a total diva, total nightmare. Just keep your head down, do your work, and shut up. And she was quiet to begin with for the first couple of days, I think. And we did a read through, and I was just telling this story the other day. Actually, we were doing a read through of. I think it was the moment when she sings As If We Never Said Goodbye, and we're sitting around with a small group of us. There must have been about 10 of us in a circle in chairs, including Lonnie, the director. And she kind of spoke the lines and sang it quietly. And we got to the end of it, and you could hear a pin drop, and there's such a vibrancy in the room. There was an electricity you could feel from everybody, and people were dabbing their eyes, and it was really moving. It was one of those moments where you do pinch yourself and say, I was there that particular moment, and it was thrilling, absolutely thrilling to be that personal and that close up, to Glenn's performance. But I think that what I don't know why, but for some reason I thought it would be a really good idea to say to her, you're not going to do it like that, are you?
Oh my goodness.
And as the words came out of my mouth, I was thinking, this could be the stupidest move I've ever made. And quick as that, she turned around to me and she said, you weren't trying to be sexy, were you? And I just straight away I thought, right, brilliant, great, we're on the same page here.
That is fabulous.
So we spent the entire time working together, just completely taking the mick out of each other, and she loved it because, of course, she's surrounded by people who are, yes, Miss Close, of course, Miss Close.
Well, I was going to say I was asked to do the launch press event for English National Opera when at the Colosseum, because they didn't want to subject her to press questions.
Right.
So they wheeled me in to do an interview with her and with Don Black, and Andrew wasn't there, couldn't be there. And I remember I did a couple of interviews with her that day, and one of the things I wanted to talk to her about, which astounded her, because big movie stars are always used to doing tabloid interviews. They get the same questions, the same kind
boring
of personal stuff,
Yeah.
And I said, her eyes just lit up when I said it. I said, I really want to know about you doing Richard Rodgers and Sheldon Harnick's Rex on Broadway, because it was a short-lived musical about Henry VIII, which was a flop.
That's right.
But she was in it, and she looked absolutely astounded. And I think she knew then that it was going to be a different kind of interview. And although she was very cool in that Hollywood way, you know, that quiet Hollywood way, she gradually opened up. And I think it's amazing that she gets that kind of tiny detail, as you mentioned before, the detail of her performance. But I reckon it's amazing that she gets that in the theatre, in a big theatre. You can still read it. You know, it's incredible.
So people used to ask Glenn, what's it like, you know, the press, what's it like coming back to play Norma 20 years later? And she said, well, you know, obviously she won the Tony Award 20 years previously. She said, I've got 20 years more life experience, 20 years more craft. So essentially it's 20 years better.
It's a good answer to the question. Of course, the big glory of the revival was the size of the band, which made it special. But talk about transporting it to Broadway, Michael, because it's at Broadway and the West End. They're quite different worlds in some ways, or did you not think so? I mean, tell me what the differences are.
Well, it's interesting because that question is asked a lot. You know, what's the difference between Broadway and the West End? The community on Broadway is phenomenal. There are always events. There are always things to go to. There are always ways of keeping the community very tight. You know, you're constantly seeing your other leading actors from other shows. Whereas in the West End, there isn't quite the same connection. I think there used to be years ago. We used to all go out for drinks in the same bars and things. It feels like now, when you're doing a West End show, everybody just goes home. It doesn't have the same sense of community. You know, there are less events put on for the community, if you like. I think there's more investment in Broadway. So they have all these different awards that happen and all these different events that they're invited to. And you are treated like royalty. You are treated like a superstar when you're in a Broadway show, especially when you're playing opposite Glenn Close. It helps. But in terms of the actual being on stage and feeling the energy from the audience, it used to feel the same as London. And I remember saying to someone, you know, I thought when we came to Broadway, the cheers were going to be louder and the response was going to be greater. And then someone said, I can't remember who it was, but it was probably Lonnie, to be honest. He's a wise man. And someone said, well, what you need to think about is so many people didn't think that Glenn was going to take this to Broadway. They thought this was going to be the last time she was going to perform Norma Desmond. So many Americans flew to England to watch that ENO performance. Yes. And so, I mean, obviously not just Americans, people from around the world flew to the ENO. And so the response, I'll never forget, and I'm getting goosebumps right now just thinking about it, I'll never forget the noise on a consistent basis of the end of With One Look. So she would step out at the top of this huge, I know you've seen it, but for those who are listening who didn't get a chance to see it, it was built like a huge sound stage. So enormous staircase intertwining, kind of crossing almost across right up to the top of the wings, if you like. And so there was a lot of stair climbing that we both had to do. But she'd step out from the top, and the minute she was in view, the audience would erupt because they're like, here she is, 20 years later, she's back. You know, it was a huge roar, and it was great. It was lovely to see. But she'd finished the end of With One Look, and I had to stand downstage right looking at her center stage. Of course, she was center stage for the end of the number. And I used to consistently want to put my finger in my right ear because the sound from the crowd, the audience, of that cheer was just deafening. It was deafening. And I used to have to, you know, just think, it's okay. It's only for a brief second. But I always wanted to wear an earplug in that ear for that reason. It was so loud. So I thought, sorry.
No, I was just saying it's so cunning of Andrew too to land that big number right at the beginning of the show or near the beginning of the show, and a number about a silent movie star, which is hilarious in itself because it's a big power ballad.
Yes, yeah, I do. I think it's great. I think the lyrics are absolutely phenomenal in that as well.
Yeah.
And As If We Never Said Goodbye, those two big numbers in the show.
Yeah.
And again, when she finished that song, there would be sometimes, a 30 seconds to 1 minute applause of just the audience just didn't want to stop.
One of the questions I asked her actually was what was going through her head in that moment where she's sitting on the stool at the studio and the lighting man is in the gantry and they turn the spotlight on her, and With One Look comes roaring out of the orchestra, one of the great moments in the show. I said, what's going through your head at that point? Another question that rather surprised her. And she said, just this, all this history coming back to me of all the silent movies I've done. She said, all running through my head at that moment, which was a great answer.
Yeah,
fantastic.
Yeah. It was. I think if anyone said to me, "What was your favourite moment in the show?" I have to say it's that moment that the light hits her, and the irony of that was that it's the only moment in the show when I actually left the stage. so the bit when I wasn't on was my favourite bit of the show, but it was a chance for me to stand in the wings and just watch. And it's her reaction to the light hitting her was just, I'm getting goosebumps again just thinking about it. It was just so emotional. And I know a lot of my friends who came and saw it said, they just broke down in tears when that happened, because seeing this, frail older lady, reliving, coming alive again, believing she's youthful all over again.
Yes, it is a great moment. The show clearly on Broadway opened doors for you in the rarefied world of American TV, and it can't have hurt being hitched to a major Hollywood star. Did a lot happen while you were in the show? I know you did one or two TV things like Blacklist, but
that was afterwards. Actually, that was after. Yeah, well, I went straight into the Prince of Broadway show. Yeah. I've just called it The Prince of Broadway. It was actually called Prince of Broadway.
Okay.
Obviously, based on the late great Hal Prince's incredible career, all the shows that he directed and produced. But we went straight into that. I think I had a day off and then went straight into rehearsals from Sunset to that. And so it was only when I finished Prince of Broadway, I flew back to the UK actually, and I did an audition from London. I did a self-tape from London for the Blacklist, and they said, you've got a role, so you have to fly back to New York and shoot it. And I ended up flying back a few times because I filmed my scenes in different blocks, and then they called me. I got killed in the show, in the TV program, and I got a phone call from my agent. They want you back for the Blacklist. And I said, they do realise they've shot me, don't they? They realise I'm no longer alive.
Flashback.
Yeah, exactly. The flashback scene, which was nice. Actually, I've got a very interesting, a short but very interesting story about that. So I had to shoot this. So I flew back to New York because I was here at the time, and it was one scene that I had to shoot, and it was. The idea was that I was talking to my laptop, and it was this bit of information about somebody in the government, all top secret that he was filming, and he said, it's sending it on a USB stick, and all conspiratorial, and he's basically warning somebody that they might be, on the list of a hitman, and he so I'm meant to be filming it at. It was about 3:00 in the afternoon, I think, was the time. Anyway, I had a message the night before, and they say, well, okay, we'll pick you up at 7:00 in the morning, and we'll take you to the studio and get you in makeup and ready and everything. And then in the morning, I got a message saying, we just knocked it back a little bit. We'll pick you up at 10:00, and then it became 12:00, and then it was 2:00, and it was come to the studio for 4. So I made it to the studio for I think it was 4:00 in the end, and. You go and you get your makeup and hair done, and you get your costume on, and you're sitting in your dressing room, and then there's this delay after delay after delay, and the one scene I'm doing is a monologue to this camera, so there's nobody else in the scene, nobody else talking. It's just me doing this 2-page monologue, which I hadn't learned brilliantly, I have to confess. I mean, I put the homework in, but what I'd done was I started sitting in the dressing room, I started to go over and over and over and over and over it to the point where I'd started to forget it again because I was becoming neurotic about it.
I know.
And the way they work on the Blacklist is they do Monday to Friday, they do normal hours, and they finish on a Friday and they have the weekend off. So, of course, Friday nights are really, really precious to the crew. So they're all desperate to get everything shot as quickly as possible so they can have their Friday night off. So it gets to 8 o'clock at night and I'm taken to set. So I was sitting in my dressing room for 4 hours after I was ready. And I'm just burning up all this energy just because I'm thinking any second now I'm going to be needed to shoot. And you've got to be ready. There's no kind of warming up to it. You just need to get on set and shoot. So I got on set and was like, oh my God, this is going to be, there's like 40 people in the crew all standing around watching me in this one scene that I'm shooting the camera. And I think I better get this right because they are desperate to get home. And luckily, I managed to do it in 10 minutes, shot the whole thing in 10 minutes. And they were like, great, all done. They closed everything down. Everybody grabbed a beer and they all left. But it was the most pressure I've ever felt. It was crazy.
Extraordinary. Well, good on you for getting there. I mean, has there been any temptation to pick up sticks and move to New York as many other Brits have done?
Actually, I bounce between the two. I do have a place that a friend of mine's that I stay in New York. So it gives me the option to be able to, head back and do work there. And obviously since lockdown, I've been locked down here in the UK. So that's been impossible. But I do have a green card. So I do have the option to work in the States, which has helped. But people say, oh, did Sunset Boulevard get you your green card? And I say, well, no, actually, I managed to apply for that before we did Broadway.
Really?
But I did manage to get the lovely Glenn Close to write me one of my letters that needs to go to the American authorities to say that I am a person of value to their country.
That would have done the trick.
It helped. It helped
just a little. Just a little.
Yeah.
Looking back over many musical theatre credits, Michael, I mean, you've done a lot of classic shows like Sound of Music, Pajama Game. One show particularly chimes with me, and that was Howard Goodall and Stephen Clark's love story. I mean, on the face of it, it sounded like such a bad idea, with the novel and the movie in mind. And that awful catchphrase, love means never having to say you're sorry. But I thought
our director, Rachel Kavanagh, used to say, it's ridiculous, it's the opposite. Love means you're always having to say you're sorry.
Yes, exactly. But it was masterly and so unexpected and clever and sophisticated. And you and Emma Williams were just fabulous in it. I didn't see it at Chichester. I saw it when it came to the Duchess briefly. But that must have been a happy experience. I'm a huge Goodall fan, by the way. Huge.
He's brilliant. He's brilliant. And the late great Stephen Clark as well, who wrote the lyrics to it as well. It was such a thrilling experience to create something together in the room with them. Obviously they'd written it, but we were rewriting all the time.
Yes.
And that kind of sense of creativity, that sense of ownership of the role and of helping shape and craft a brand new piece of theatre was thrilling, and it's what I want to do more of, because I've done many revivals of classic musicals, like you say. So to do something original like that was just brilliant. And the team, like I say, Stephen Clark, obviously Howard himself, and Rachel Kavanagh as and Steve Ridley as well. So Rachel Kavanagh was the director, and Steve was our musical director, and just the combination of the four of them was just brilliant. And obviously Emma, to work opposite Emma Williams as well. She's just such an intelligent actress.
Well, the generosity of it came across, the warmth of it came across. And there were wonderful things like the pasta song, which I will never forget.
I'll never forget rehearsing it, I'll tell you that. So it was
learning it.
Okay, oh my God, it was an absolute nightmare. If anyone ever says, "Oh, I'm having real trouble learning this song," I'm like, "Yeah, okay, try cooking while you're learning that as well." Yeah,
but there isn't one variety of pasta you don't know about now. You see, Michael.
Well, you say that, but we were supposed to be doing the 10th anniversary this year. That was meant to be in
another casualty.
July, wasn't it? Yes, it was meant to be mid-July. Yes. No, in fact, we should have done it. When was it? It was meant to be May. Sorry, it was meant to be mid-May.
I was going to be there.
Yeah, so and we, of course, myself and Emma met up and thought, well, let's have a read of it because it's been 10 years. You know, I don't remember what I did 10 days ago, never mind 10 years ago. So just shred it. I shred all this work and just all the information goes from my memory.
Yeah.
So we sat down to read it, and I'd forgotten how incredible it was actually, how just all the feelings came back and all the, just not all the words, sadly. So suddenly we got to the pasta song and I'm going, oh my God, did we say all this? Did we actually say all these names of different types of pasta? It's crazy. I do remember the first day we tried to rehearse it though, and Rachel said, okay, why don't you just give it a go? There's the kitchen, there's a bowl, there's a pan, there's some garlic there, see what you do. And I think we managed to chop one bit of garlic throughout the whole song, and that was it. Because we're so busy trying to think of the words. It's such a wordy song.
Oh,
it's one of those that I always call a list song. It's like reading out a shopping list, and it's got no emotional connection if you're reading just, item after item. How do you emotionally connect to that? So
there is also one of Howard's most beautiful ballads in the show, Nocturne. So, and
I know. I was always jealous that I never got to sing that.
I know, absolutely gorgeous. Of course, another great figure, still contemporary, but a lot older, is Stephen Sondheim. You've done a couple of his shows, Into the Woods in Regent's Park. Never did get to see the end of that show. Every time I go to Regent's Park, it rains.
Oh no, you didn't see the end?
I didn't see the end. So the whole twist of the production was gone.
Have you seen it online though?
No, I haven't. So I should. But people have told me now. People have told me about it. And, but I loved Jamie Lloyd's production of Assassins at the Menier, where you played John Wilkes Booth. And I always think it's a great example of Sondheim's genius, that big aria that John Wilkes Booth has, where Sondheim really conveys his passion, even though he's a character that we're supposed to dislike for his racist beliefs. Sondheim wants to characterize him as someone that should be heard. And I think that scene is extraordinary in that piece.
Oh, I just loved every moment of that show. Jamie is a very, very smart guy. He's just brilliant. I don't know, there's just something about his DNA that just manages he comes up with these phenomenal ideas. It was just such a great character to play. And I love Sondheim because I always think of myself as an actor who can sing, as opposed to, a lot of people consider themselves singers.
Yes, yes.
But for me, performing through character is what I love most. And to get a chance to play such a strong character and get to show the emotional shifts that Sondheim gives you throughout each song is why I love Sondheim so much. And I always say I'd love to tick off every Sondheim, love to play a role in every single Sondheim there ever was. But I don't know, maybe there's enough years left in my life to be able to do that.
Oh, yes. There are a few parts that you can home in on.
Oh, I just honestly love it so much. And it's such a cliche, isn't it? Oh, to love Sondheim. But there just is such a detail in there that as an actor, you can grasp with both hands.
Is it frustrating still? Because people love to pigeonhole performers, and because you're so well known in musical theatre, I know you've done a lot of straight work, and in TV and theatre. But is it still a challenge to persuade the powers that be that, to see you for those straight roles when they think of you as a musical theatre performer?
Yes, I think yes is the short version of that answer.
Yeah.
I think, I've spent 20 years now of my career trying to say, hang on a minute, I did study as an actor. I do know what I'm doing. I know how to do Shakespeare and straight plays and screen acting as well. Please give me a chance. So, yes. Look, you have to be realistic in this business, and you have to say, if I was on the other side of the table and I was a casting director and I'm casting, I don't know, whatever the role is, and I have 10 guys come in for that role, 9 of them have done, 10 years worth of screen experience over the course of 10 years maybe. And then there's a guy that comes in that's done lots of plays or lots of musical theatre. Who are you going to go with? or who are you going to trust more? You know, of course, there's going to be a lean towards the guys who know what they're doing on set and they know how to, you know, shift their performance for camera. And so I think you're always going in on the back foot, if you like, with something like that. And I think it's only when you start to get the lucky breaks is when you can, you know, start to go, okay, look at what I can do, because I've got footage now. You know, have a look at that TV series, whatever it is I did, and then, you know, now you can see me in costume, you can see what my face looks like on camera and how I sound, and then the you know, there's obviously the snowball starts to roll, hopefully, and the trust in the casting directors and the directors begins.
When you get the role, how do you like to work? I mean, what do you want from a director, for example? Are you one of those actors that likes a lot of input from the director, or are you one of those actors that likes to get on with it and be, you know, experiment?
It's a bit of both, really. Yeah. I love feedback. I love a director giving me very detailed notes, so that there's even more detail to play with a moment that I think I've already found.
Yes.
And actually working on Gentleman Jack with Sally Wainwright, directing one of those episodes that I did.
Yes.
That was brilliant, because obviously Sally's written it, so she knows exactly what she wants. And so we'd do a take, and then she'd come back in and she'd give... The great thing was, I thought, I'm going to be the one that gets all the notes here. And the lovely thing was, it was myself and Saran Jones, you know, in the scene together. It was just the two of us. And we'd get equal note, you know, so sometimes she'd come back and I'd get 10 notes, and then the next take, Saran would get another 10 notes. And then, you know, but there were so many notes from Sally that the difficulty became, as the day goes on and you're filming the same scene over and over again, and you're getting tired mentally. And the problem is learning to be able to play the notes while still staying true to being in character, still feeling like you're really present. Because you're constantly thinking, well, she told me to do this line like that, and then what's the next note? Oh, it's coming up now. It's this thing. You know, you're trying to stop your brain from having those thought patterns.
Overthinking it.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just being able to be free.
Yeah.
Even though you're also you're wanting to keep Sally Wainwright happy because she's created it. You're like, you know, if Sally Wainwright's happy, I'm fine with that, because that's what she wants, right?
I asked Diana Rigg that same question. What do you want from a director? And she said direction.
Brilliant.
She didn't get away with that, mind you, but she thought she'd stymie me with that. But
I always find it difficult when you have a director that doesn't give you any notes, because, you know, you're an actor, you're not a director. Yeah. It doesn't matter if you can direct, that's a different thing. But you haven't got a third pair of eyes some second pair of eyes, I should say, to watch your performance back. You know, yes. If you had time on set, for instance, to go to the screen and watch the rushes, you know, watch the scene played back really quickly, I always think that would be useful for me, because I could go, right, okay, I can see what I'm doing there, and I think I can make that moment a bit more nuanced. But you never get that opportunity, really, unless you're a big star and you go, hang on, I need to see that. And then you go behind the set. You can, you know, sit with the director and watch it back. But I think I find it difficult not to get direction in any way, because you assume that when you're not getting any direction, you're on the right page and you're in the right ballpark, which is normally the case.
Yes.
And I remember working with John Doyle on Oklahoma down in Chichester. And we were working through the rehearsal process, and he never gave me any notes. And I was just really perturbed by that, because I was like, what's going on? I don't know what to do. I don't, you know, am I, of course, it's the insecure actor coming out as well. You're thinking, I really hope I'm, you know, pleasing him. I really hope he likes what I'm doing, and that he's not just thinking I'm a lost cause. That's why he's not giving me any notes. So anyway, he spoke to me one day and said, look, the reason I'm not giving you any notes is because you're doing it great. And, you know, if I wasn't happy, I'd be giving you notes. But still, as an actor, you still love to get the detail. You love those moments of, you know, maybe you need to think about this here, or maybe there's a shift in emotion there, or, you know, and it's all the detail and all the subtlety that I love about acting. And it's what I have kind of fallen in love with more recently with the screen stuff, because there's an opportunity to show real detail in shifts of emotion, in shifts of thought, because you're so close to the camera, obviously, and you can see all that. You know, and obviously on stage, if you're in a big auditorium, big theatre,
it has to be bigger to read bigger.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It needs to be slightly more overt. You know, the thought.
Speaking of notes and advice, you hosted the Stephen Sondheim Society Student Performer of the Year in 2015. I chair the jury every year, and you've set up your own MX Masterclass, preparing students for training colleges. What prompted that, and what is it you most try to encourage from young performers? What are the common issues you come across with them?
Oh, so many questions in one question.
I know.
Well, first question is, how did it come about? Well, myself and my ex-partner, Lindsay Wise, we put on some performances in local theatres with local children involved in these performances. It was called Sing with the Stars, and it was an opportunity for local kids to perform with West End leading players. And they were actually really successful, but just financially terrible. So we just couldn't really afford to put them on anymore. So we decided that it was just, you'd spend 3 months preparing it, putting it all together, rehearsing, or auditioning the children, getting everything together, and then just not make enough money to if break even. But the process of it and the actual doing of it was brilliant. We loved it. But we would have to train the kids, rehearse the kids up in 2 days, because it was all happening on the same weekend. So we'd just say, look, we're coming in, we're going to put this together really quickly. You need to know what you're doing. And we'd work really intensely with the kids for a couple of days. And so many kids during the period of, we did about 4 different locations, I think it was, they would come up and they would say, I've learned so much more in 2 days with you guys than I've learned in 2 years of the local Amdram group I'm part of, or whatever it was. And so on the back of these conversations, we said, well, look, we'd be stupid not to set up a school, really, because we're obviously good at this, and we're teaching the kids what they need to know. They don't know the basics of theatre training, or they don't know, the stuff that we know that happens in the industry now. And so it was 9 years ago. It was 2011. We started the first school. It was originally called West End Masterclass, and then it became Musical Theatre Masterclass, and now MX Masterclass. A couple of different, branding changes over the years, but I think your second question was to do with what do you kind of want to get from the children, and I think that was your question anyway, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah. And what are the most common difficulties you come across with them?
The parents. It's always the parents. The kids are great. The parents are always a headache. No, they're not always a headache. No, they're great. We have lots of fab parents. And you understand where the protective parenting comes from as well. No, it's I think what I've tried to develop at MX Masterclass is not just brilliant training in musical theatre, and I have different teachers that I work with that I bring in because I know them, and I know they're fantastic, and they're very inspirational, and they give it's almost like mentoring as well as teaching. And I think the thing that I've started to realize over the years that over the years that really kind of is my driving force behind doing this is helping shape the lives of young people. Now, it sounds very grand. It sounds a bit, maybe the OTT, but you have children that have a raw talent and they come to us for an audition, and I see it in the audition room and I say, yes, you have the ability to be trained because you understand, your instrument, and you understand being able to act. And so we take them on board, and you see a child that is insecure and shy, or whatever kind of place they are at. I just love watching them grow, both as a performer and then as a human being. Just coming out of their shell, feeling comfortable in their own skin, and from all walks of life. I kind of open my arms out and think, come this way, and we will help you and we will support you. And I've got a zero tolerance policy at MX Masterclass, and I say it to them at the beginning of the beginning of the audition day, and also every term. I say to them, it's my school, my rules apply, and I will kick anybody out if I hear of any other student bitching about another student. That is not what we're here to do. We're here to embrace each other. We're here to make mistakes together, make mistakes in inverted commas. We're here to fail in inverted commas together, and we are going to embrace that, and we're going to enjoy the process of that in order for us to be able to feel safe to do that and safe to explore ourselves as performers.
It's good that you're honest about that, Michael, because when I do the heats every year for the Sondheim competition, youngsters come in who are at drama schools that have taken their money, even though they haven't a hope in hell of making it in this business. It's a very competitive and cruel business in many, many respects. We've both been in it. We know what we're talking about. And I get very upset when I see people that shouldn't be there at all. And someone needed to be honest with them and say, look, with the best will in the world, I'm not going to take you on because you haven't got what's necessary.
Yeah, and this is one thing that happens at the audition day every time, which is, it's kind of heartbreaking, but I know that I'm being cruel to be kind. So let's take an example. We have an age range of 10 to 25, so it's quite a big age range. But when they get over the kind of 18, 19 years of age, I'm looking for a particular talent. I'm looking for a particular level. Because obviously when you're younger, you can learn the skills, and as long as you've got the raw talent. And so say, for instance, there's a 23-year-old, a 24-year-old that comes in, and they can sing in tune, but they just don't have it. They don't have the ability. Yes. You can see that they're not going to make it in the industry. And what I say to them is, I say, what's your dream? So they'll get to the end of the audition. I say, okay, what do you want? What's your dream? And 9 times out of 10, they say, I want to be a lead in the West End. And I say to them, okay, I'm really sorry to say this to you now, but you're going to thank me for this in years to come. But that's not going to happen. And you see them just like the wind kicked out of their sails. Gosh. It's awful. It's an awful moment, but I know it's for the right reasons, because I say to them, look, you are talented, you have an ability, but you are up against students who have gone to training. They've spent, there's thousands of students that leave colleges every year. They've trained for 3 years. They're better than you. They now have 3 jobs on their CV, or 4 or 5 or 6 jobs on their CV. And you are saying that you're going to go in having not trained professionally, not trained for 3 years in musical theatre, and you've gone to MX Masterclass for a couple of terms, and you think you're going to compete against them. It's not going to happen. So embrace the enjoyment of what you do. Keep it as a hobby. Think about another form of making money, because you will fall out of love with it if you try and make this your career.
Mm-hmm. Well, I wish more people would do that.
It's horrible. It's a horrible thing to say, but I know it's the right thing to do, and I sleep well at night because I say those things to them.
Now, is it true, just to finish up with, there are always weird things one sees on people's CVs, and I'm always amused by, in that list of things at the bottom.
Oh God! What have you seen?
Is it true that you're a mixologist? That you mix cocktails? You're a bartender?
Is that on my CV?
It really is.
Is it?
Yes.
I used to be a bartender, but I wouldn't say I was a mixologist. Is mixologist on my CV?
Yes.
Oh,
it is.
Good Lord, I need to take that off tonight. Well, you know what, I'm thinking, I think the reason that I probably said, oh yeah, sure, I'll stick that on there, is because I'm sure loads of actors that are listening to this will feel me. They'll understand this situation. You go through the endless list of things that you can potentially tick to say you have a skill in. Yeah. Now, I worked in a bar for, I don't know, I've worked in bars on and off over the years, but when I moved to London, I worked in behind the bar in a restaurant called Porter's English Restaurant, which was on Henrietta Street in Covent Garden. It's now Flatiron, I think it is. And I worked behind the bar there and learned to make cocktails, but not in the way that a mixologist would do cocktails in the fancy bars where they're flambeing everything and doing all the fancy tricks and doing all the throws and everything. But I thought, you know what, for the sake of a film or for the sake of a scene, Are they going to really know the amount of, triple sec that I've added to this particular shot? Or,
and here was I thinking,
who's going to know?
Here was I thinking you'd be in some swanky bar in Monte Carlo or something.
You never know. I mean, I could pretend to be a great mixologist. That's
Well, you spent your life pretending. So,
exactly.
And my drama teacher always used to say to me, when you're asked a question like that, just say yes. Can you ride a horse?
I'm far too
yes.
honest.
Can you
far
drive?
too honest.
Yes. And she said, worry about it later.
Well, the ride the horse one is a funny one because when I was doing Outlander,
yes, I was about to say,
that was one of the things that I actually originally did a self-tape for that, and I was in. Where was I when I first auditioned for that? Oh, I was in LA at the time. So I was in LA, and I had to go to this self-tape place, and I did the scene, and the way the scene was written was very arch. It was very kind of like this real baddie character. So I was like, okay, I swept the hair back and I wore black, and I was all very, very mean and moody. And I did the audition on the tape, and one of the things they said to say on the slate was, tell us you can ride a horse. So you had to say, I'm Michael Xavier, I'm 6'3", I'm with Denton Briley and APA, my agents, and I can ride a horse, like right down the lens, with conviction. So that's what I did, and then I was filming something in Bulgaria, and I got an email from my agent saying, the director loves you, but he said you've completely pitched the character wrong. It's not Arch at all. He's meant to be like a friend to this character. And I was like, I didn't read that in the script at all. So then I had to try and film this in my hotel room in Bulgaria, in Sofia. And luckily, the leading guy of the film I was in was happy enough to come and help me out. So we kind of read the lines in my hotel room, and I got the role from that. So
fascinating stuff.
Dan Jeanette was the actor. So I've got Dan to thank for that. But yeah, that was the thing of saying I can ride a horse.
Yeah.
And, I'd been on horses. As a child, I'd ridden a horse probably 4 times in my life, so I certainly wasn't a horse rider. And
a fistful of sedatives to give it when.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I went and got some lessons because I thought, right, okay, I really need to get back into the swing of feeling comfortable on a horse. So I had a few lessons locally, and they were pretty terrible, to be honest. The horse was so lazy. The person teaching me was like, "Go on, give it a good kick," and I'm literally kicking the 7 bells out of this poor horse, and it's not wanting to move at all. It's like, just not shifting. So I just gave up. And then, of course, I went on set and started rehearsing with the horses they had there. And they've got an amazing team, and the horses are incredible. They're just so responsive. So, you give it a great kick, and the thing bolts. You're like, oh, Jesus. So, yeah.
Just finally, Michael, we could do this all day, obviously.
I know. I talk too much.
No, that's what we want. Are there any roles that you really covet and you just want to put out there that you'd love to play this role? I mean, be it a musical, be it a straight play. Are there any things that keep coming up in your head that you think, gosh, I'd love that opportunity to come along?
Oh, and again, this is one of those questions that comes around every now and again. And I think my response to this, and I think I still believe this, is I try not to. This industry is full of disappointment. You are constantly disappointed because you're always up for a job, and 9 times out of 10 you don't get it, right?
Yes.
So to manage the disappointment, I don't really set my bar level of expectation high in terms of specific roles, because I just think if I say, I want to play that role and that role and that role and that role, and then I never get to play them, I'm lying there on my deathbed going, I never get to play those roles. I don't want to be disappointed. So that's kind of how I feel about it. But occasionally you'll see something and go, I'd love to play a role like that, or my thing is, I always say I'm a greedy actor. I want to do comedy. I want to do high drama. I want to do film, television, musicals, stage, Shakespeare. I want to do it all. And luckily I've been very, very lucky to be able to do all of those things. But I just want to keep flexing my muscles in different ways. So when I've done a dramatic something, I then think, I'd love to do a comedy now. Actually, I don't get to do enough comedies. I really enjoy it. And I think the one thing I would probably love to do that I haven't done is like a really cool sitcom, something probably an
Okay,
American sitcom.
that's interesting. That's interesting.
I think, but a really good one, something that's really well written and well put together.
Well,
but I think to jump on the back of that and answer, I think there is one role that always kind of comes back to me, and I think it's a great classic, and I think it would have to be Sweeney Todd.
Yes.
I just love the show. I love the role, and I think it would be so different for me to play a character like that as well. I think it would it's flexing the muscle in a slightly different way.
Well, I'm glad you put it out there, because you've got a little bit of time to continue to be able to play that role, and I mean, it can be cast at various ages, really. I mean, you've got a bit of a window there, but it is a very satisfying, and it's a meal, isn't it? It's a real meal.
It's such a great
banquet.
Great role. It is a banquet, absolutely, and it's just you've got so much to play with. And actually, it's funny because when I sang "Being Alive" at Sondheim's 85th birthday celebration at Drury Lane, and at the end of that, people were saying, "Oh my God, of course, you'd be the perfect Bobby. Bring company back, so Michael can play the role of Bobby." And then, of course, Marianne Elliott does the female Bobby. And I was like, "Well, there's nothing I can do about that."
That's wonderful. Well, look, when you get offered, Sweeney, we can talk again.
Let's do that.
Thanks.
It'll happen one day.
Thanks so much, Michael. I'm really delighted you could do this, and we'll meet again soon on the other side.
I hope so. It's been great to talk to you, Edward.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
Destination for the stony-hearted. Sunset Boulevard, Lethal Boulevard. Everyone's forgotten how they started.